What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the WWE NXT New Year's Evil live post show. My name is Ango. I'm here joined by Billy TKO.
Yes, sir.
Billy, NXT New Year's Evil. I would argue that this was the best NXT episode of the year.
I would say the same thing. That's really funny you say that.
No way. Actually, I
Yeah.
would say, honestly, like this sounds a little bit crazy too, and I know people will kind of get upset. Maybe you'll agree, disagree, but I thought NXT tonight was actually far better than anything AEW has put out in 2024.
Dude, I kind of feel no, I feel like you're right.
I mean, I'm just saying, like,
Could it
2024, NXT is having a better year than AEW.
right now where we stand? Absolutely, I'd agree.
Wow, I love it.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
guys, we got a fun episode of NXT.
Hold
Obviously,
on. I want to ask you a question.
already off the rip. Okay,
Yeah. How you doing?
how you doing? How you doing? I'm
Go
doing
back.
good, Billy.
Yeah,
I,
good.
I honestly, I'm doing pretty well, actually. Believe it or not, the thing right now is that I've been really enjoying wrestling this week. It just seems like everything's very lit, which is cool. I'm glad. I'm glad that I'm enjoying it and stuff like that. You know what
Right.
else I would enjoy? I would enjoy if we can get 100 likes on this stream. So if you guys haven't clicked like, drop kick the like button. I don't know, do something with
Yeah.
it.
Do something with it. But beat it up. Get it to 100.
Very eventful episode of NXT, but what I do want to actually say, overall, I enjoyed tonight's episode. I have my gripes with NXT. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Billy, just overall in general, what did you think about tonight's episode of NXT?
Very, very good episode of NXT. Some little gripes that I have with the show. I felt like there were a lot of I'm not gonna sit here and say false advertisements, right? Because the truth is they were just things that we were hoping would happen, right? Like we obviously had the NXT champion at the end. We got Kevin Owens, and then earlier through the night we got like really breaking news, and a lot of people were under the impression that that could have possibly been Andrade. Both of those things could have been Andrade, but sadly, we ended up with not sadly, right? Because love Kevin Owens and love what he does, but also the Elia thing. So I will
Yeah.
say that those two things, just little gripes, right? Like I don't think you needed to go all the way out and be like, "Hey, look at who's here," blah blah blah, and you could have just played into it.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the good, the bad, the sexy, the ugly, whatever it may be. But if you guys want to support the channel, feel free to drop a super chat. If you guys drop a super chat, that guarantees we will read your questions and comments on the air. And then also, if you guys aren't taking advantage of all these cool emojis and perks, you can become a member on the channel. Feel free to do that. Billy, you mentioned the Elia Dragonov thing. That's kind of where I want to start off. Because
Cool.
obviously we're talking about Kevin Owens, right? It's part of the title. You just mentioned it. But WWE did advertise Elia Dragonov versus Trick Williams. NXT tonight decided not to move with that match. In fact, during the opening match of tonight, they announced midway through the match, they put a little ticker on there. It's like, Kelly Kincaid is going to have a breaking news announcement,
Yep.
which I thought it was a cool little touch. It's like, oh shit, I got to watch this.
Yeah.
Then
It felt. Go ahead.
they get to the announcement, and then they announce that Ilya Dragunov is not cleared. And I don't know, man. I just felt like it was. I'm not mad at WWE because at the end of the day, it's a free episode of NXT. And at the end of the day, the people that are going to the NXT show don't pay any money to get in there. So I'm not like too upset about it, but I am kind of curious as to why WWE went this route of not offering this match. Now, to be fair, I'm good with the Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams scenario because we later find out that Carmelo Hayes is going to put Trick Williams' #1 contendership on the line against Grayson Waller. But it was kind of weird. I don't know. Like, I see some people in the chat are saying Ilya's like legitimately not cleared. I hope that is the. Well, no, I don't actually hope this guy is injured.
But to make
Obviously,
it make sense,
it would make sense
right?
that they didn't do that. Let me make sure you guys understand. I don't ever want somebody to ever be hurt in wrestling, obviously.
Right.
But that would be a little bit more logically speaking, if he actually isn't legitimately cleared. We just know that right now, Elia Dragonov was the injury angle that they ran with on NXT television is kayfabe. So for me, initially, I was just thinking, oh, he's not cleared because of kayfabe. Let's just say that's the
that was
case.
my initial thought. That was my initial thought.
I didn't like that personally. I like I said, I'm not like pissed off about it, but I was just kind of like, this is a New Year Eve. This is New Year's Evil. This is like a special episode. You've been advertising this match. Trick Williams won the Iron Survivor thing. Like for me personally, I was just like, not that I have anything against Trick and Grayson Waller. I just feel like this was kind of a big letdown when it was a match that I got excited about. Obviously.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Now, I will say that I think it really plays into something that's going to happen on NXT TV, and I think it plays into the idea of Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, right? Because if Elia is not legitimately injured, then they did this for a reason, right? And maybe they felt like they kind of rushed this match a little bit too much. It was almost too soon. Like this was definitely a match I thought that they were going to hold for Vengeance Day anyways, right? I genuinely thought that this match was going to be held off till then. They weren't going to touch it till then because they still need to figure out how exactly they're going to align the Mello Trick Williams storyline because obviously they're still playing into that. There's still a lot of things to be done there. And I think this kind of extends it a little bit, right? Because if they don't have the match till Vengeance Day, then that gives them a little bit more time because Vengeance Day is in what, February? Then you have about a 2-month build to get into Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it plays into that.
I think I agree with you, but it was a match I was looking forward to, and maybe I could be wrong, but I don't know. This could potentially bite WWE in the ass. The whole Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes thing is now going on a little bit longer than I think it needs to. Not that it's like terrible because I think one of the cool things that a lot of people are saying is like, oh, well, Carmelo Hayes wasn't necessarily the one who attacked Trick. That's part of this reveal is that Carmelo didn't do it. Carmelo's jealous and he's guilty of being jealous, but he's not guilty of actually attacking Trick Williams. My fear is that this could be one of those whodunit storylines where the reveal and the build is good, but the reveal is completely garbage.
And it's horrible.
I can't jump the gun, but now I'm getting to the point, just me personally as a viewer, where I'm like, okay, so you extended this match. At some point, Trick needs to lose, right? He's probably going to lose to Elia Dragonov.
Yeah.
The reveal is going to cost Trick, whatever it may be. Now they have to extend it. I think maybe this is where, and I'm a very, very patient wrestling fan, but now this is maybe where I'm becoming a little bit slightly impatient.
Right, because it feels like because it started with the Lexus King stuff, and then it kind of dragged along, and it's still dragging along, and then you pull the match today where they could have easily done it today, and obviously, again, we don't know the case with Elia and whatnot, but pulling it today, it's like, okay, now we're just going to continue dragging it along. The payoff's not going to happen till Vengeance Day, which is still a whole nother month away. It's like, okay, all right. It's been a while. I get it. And like you said, patience is completely starting to run thin and run dry.
For me, with this particular storyline, yes. And it's just because of the fact, like even Lexus King not being on the show or not being involved at this point. Like, it's like, okay, we're running through hoops for something. It's not like the Bloodline storyline where it's this massive ordeal. Like, this is not as big. So maybe that would be a little bit of my criticism for the show, but overall I did enjoy the show. We did get a couple super chats. Justin Kennington dropped one, says, I feel Obafemi is going to be a beast for NXT. Guys, I want to talk about this anyways. Obafemi won the breakout tournament against Riley Osborne. Great match. I see a huge ceiling for both of these gentlemen. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, with the way Obafemi moves and the way that he's like powerful and strength and speed and everything that he does, his presentation, his aura. I will go I will make a very bold prediction here. I think Obafemi is a WWE World Heavyweight Champion in the next 5 years, and I would be willing to bet that it's probably going to happen very likely in the next 3. I genuinely believe like this guy is like WWE is going to love Obafemi.
I also think they're going to love Riley Osborne.
I do too. The
Yeah.
only thing about Riley Osborne, and I'm just it's me personally, I understand where, people might disagree with me here. I think Riley Osborne's a hell of a talent for a guy that like I have very little time actually watching him wrestle. I've
Yeah.
only watched a few matches now. I will go very far in saying that Riley Osborne is going to be very talented and very successful in wrestling. I don't know if he'll ever get that chance in WWE just because naturally this is how wrestling is, the bloated rosters, and not everybody gets that chance. But I will throw this out there. Riley Osborne needs to go away from Chase University. And
100%.
I think he's super talented. And I think this whole romance type of angle that they're running with Thea Hale and Riley Osborne is just a little bit too Disney-esque. And
It sucks seeing because you do see his potential in the wrestling side of things, and you're like, yo, this dude could really wrestle, and he's super talented, right?
yeah.
And you kind of see it getting overshadowed by the Chase University or the Thea Hale and all that. And it's like, okay, all right. But I watch a match like tonight with Obafemi, and I'm like, yo, this guy's a really good wrestler. And you like the feeling of wanting to get behind somebody winning is always a really good feeling. And I felt like even, obviously this was the breakout, right? These guys aren't very known, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, oh, let me get behind this guy, because even the vignette kind of beforehand where he was talking about being, a European wrestler and stuff like that, I was
Yeah.
like, yo, this is really, really good. And I really like this.
I agree, man. And again, I will say this: we see it a lot with NXT, and now we've been seeing it for the last few months a lot more with WWE. But I genuinely believe I've been saying this for years. But video packages do a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't care for this idea of him being a Chase University student and doing this whole thing where he's like writing down on paper and Elia Dragonov's name is on there. But I do love the fact that in that vignette, it was fairly like, in a way, it was kind of like he was putting his name next to some like really elite members of the WWE
Yeah.
roster.
Like
Finn
Elia was the
Balor.
person above him.
Yeah. Like they're like, when I see this type of stuff, I'm like, okay, they have something there and they're trying to show you he's not just like another guy. I don't mind him being in Chase University now, but I do want them to break him away from that. And the good thing, though, and I will say this, because I also believe the same sentiment should be said for Duke Hudson, which Lon Maya says, how will this year's Dusty Cup compare to past ones? Well, tonight, Ava Rain announced that it comes back next week. Riley Osborne and Duke Hudson are going to be tag teaming, which, again, the segments are kind of cringy at times. And but they're always logical. I will always give WWE NXT the benefit of the doubt. JC Jane says to Andre Chase, he's not going to be in the Dusty Cup. It's going to be Riley Osborne and Duke Hudson. Now, Duke Hudson is one of those guys where I kind of feel like he needs to get away from Chase University as well. He's a great talent.
The whole thing with Chase University is it started off as this comedy gimmick, and then you started to see like the little shiners, right? Those guys who you're like, oh, you do not need to be here, and you do not belong here. And you look at the two guys right now, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at Riley Osborne, Duke Hudson, and you're like, okay, you guys do not belong here. So now I feel like it's a Chase University problem. Looking at it now, it's like, okay, maybe we need to take a step back away from Chase University in a whole. Obviously, they're not going to completely dust it right now, but I think as time goes on, it's time to maybe get rid of that. And I get it, Chase you, and it's a good comedy gimmick, and I still enjoy the fact that they're playing into him and it's showing on his face and stuff like that. Like like you said a couple minutes ago, it completely makes sense and it all kind of lines up.
Yeah.
But again, it's things that are just completely getting played out.
Yeah. I don't think Chase U, and I said this before, probably like when 2.0 started, Chase University in NXT will be a hot commodity. When it goes to the main roster, it's going to change. And I'm okay with them changing it a little bit or whatever. But I think the big thing is like Duke Hudson, for example, and Riley Osborne being a tag team. I think that's going to actually have a lot of benefits for both of the guys. But when they tag team, obviously they'll be representing Chase University. So if they're representing Chase University, they do got to break away. And maybe they do. Maybe Andre Chase's gambling debts and all that stuff leads to them. I don't think it's an issue that Riley Osborne's in Chase University, but when I watched him fight Obafemi, I was like, okay, this guy has a lot of potential outside of this. You got to move him away. I look at that North American Championship title picture and I'm like, this guy can work.
Yep.
Now he's got to find his character and stuff like that. It's very early stages of his career, but I just want to point that out there. Going back to the super chat, Billy, though, I will ask you, because tonight on NXT, we did see Axiom and Nathan Frazier, Idris and
you just took the words out of my mouth.
We're seeing a whole bunch of tag teams. They want to get excited for the Dusty Cup. And then surprisingly, Baron Corbin and
Breaker.
Vin Diesel's twin. Yeah. Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin, they want a tag team now. And
I'm not sure
they're
if
trying
you
to make
knew
it a big
or not.
deal.
I'm not sure if you knew or not, but they say I look like Braun Breaker.
Yeah, that seems like a joke to me. Like the Dax Harwood thing, when people were saying you look like Dax Harwood, I was like, okay,
yeah.
Low key, I kind of like, if you were bald or whatever, I could kind of see it.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, you definitely don't look like Braun Breaker. Maybe it's the facial hair.
In my wildest dreams, right?
But you got to get it painted in like Braun Breaker's been doing.
Right, exactly.
So, but yeah, we saw a lot of focus on tag teams coming together and like they want to be in the Dusty Classic. So how do you think this year's Dusty Cup will compare to the previous ones?
So see, for me, right, I'm gonna say it, but for me, like my idea of the Dusty Cup is a team like MSK. That was like I was like, I love these guys, and them winning, it was that really feel good moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just don't know if that exists right now in this version of NXT. I will say while saying that there is a team that was announced tonight that I've been waiting for and that I think is going to work. And you said their names, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I think are going to be amazing through this. I think if there is any two people that could just suddenly, shockingly win this, I think it's Nathan Frazier and Axiom. I think those two guys, they've wrestled each other enough. Let's let them go out and wrestle other people. Let them do it together and show how talented they are.
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you, Lon, for the super chat. We did get another one. Richard, I do want to read your super chat. I started right here, so I'm going to push it to the side. I'm going to get to that in a second because I did want to talk about something while we're on the topic of Axiom and Nathan Frazier.
Yeah.
So, Billy, I want to ask you, we're seeing in NXT, Axiom, Nathan Frazier. Obviously, Wesley was somebody who obviously now he's going away a little bit because of injury and stuff like that. But we're starting to see a lot of people in WWE who have this really good work rate. And I'm starting to really get the impression that under Triple H and Shawn Michaels, WWE should yet again try to bring back the Cruiserweight Championship. And I know this is a very hard thing for people to understand where I'm coming from, because I do understand the argument that WWE has too many title belts and, whatever. But I do feel like there are a lot of smaller guys and younger guys who are fighting for TV time who realistically may not ever get the chance to become a world champion. And I think because Triple H loves the influence of boxing and MMA and weight classes, I'm not saying they have to do middleweight and lightweight and this and that, but having a Cruiserweight Championship belt, I feel like it actually does fit in 2023. But let me make this clear as well, because I know some people might try to twist my words, and then I'll get to you, Billy. I don't want WWE to do a purple Cruiserweight Championship and 1 hour dedicated to cruiserweights on Raw. I don't want them to make this a gimmick. I just want these guys to have a prize to go for. And I look at Axiom and Nathan Frazier, and they're going to do great, and they're going to have a good time in that Dusty Classic. But imagine if you didn't have to throw them as a tag team and all these great guys who are athletic as hell. Imagine they have a 205 championship. Like, am I crazy for thinking I want to see it in 2024?
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. I do kind of disagree, though. I think the Cruiserweight Championship and what it is kind of just has this bad stigma around it. Like, I feel like the stigma around the Cruiserweight Championship has been completely distraught over the years, and whether that be bad booking or whatever the case, it just when I think about it, it doesn't sit right with me now. What I will say though is I do believe that you could do something along those lines, and you said it a little bit ago, but the lightweight championship, let it, or
Light heavyweight.
light heavyweight,
Yeah.
European, let it be one of those things, right? Instead of the cruiserweight, because the cruiserweight has so much bad aura around it, and how many times it's came and gone and things like that. You know what I mean? So having a light heavyweight championship, I don't think would be a problem at all, though.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because
Yeah,
you're saying because of the actual reputation at this point.
right.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because this is one of those things, Billy, that I do actually hate about wrestling in general. Like looking at WWE, Vince McMahon's regime kind of screwed up a lot of stuff that were good ideas, but terribly executed. And you know, this is just me being a little bit of a sucker for this high paced action. If WWE does their storytelling, but then also includes those types of matches that are going down, like these guys I look at who are extremely talented, I feel like it kind of presents them as a big deal, despite the fact that they're not world champions, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Triple H is the one who would probably be best to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that maybe the Cruiserweight Championship does have a negative aura surrounding it because of Vince. But I do feel like with Triple H's booking, I feel like it would be completely fine. And maybe, you know, it's tough because there's a brand split. And I always feel like if you want the brand split to be real and true and
You
authentic,
want two of those.
you want two of those. Exactly. And I don't like the idea of belts being shared across brands.
Not if you're going to have the brand split.
However, if you're doing a brand split, maybe what WWE could do, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there to be logical, right? It may not be the most popular opinion, but to be logical, maybe you introduce a Cruiserweight Championship for Raw or SmackDown or whatever, you know,
Yeah,
and then you have a European Championship or a TV Championship or whatever other mid-card championship that goes to another show. But you are introducing two more titles at that point. I understand the flaws with it. I'm just saying from a personal experience as a fan, I do think WWE should do this because WWE, and actually I will go as far as saying AEW as well, which we're not talking about AEW tonight,
but I think it's a fair thing to say.
But it's like having a weight class, and I get it, dude. This is going to become such a deep dive. I understand why it may not even work in AEW. They already have too many titles in general. A lot of guys in AEW are typically smaller in general. I get it, but I think the idea that TNA has done a really good job with is the X Division belt.
Man, and just throughout all the years, they've done really good with that X Division belt.
Throughout all the years. And now you're seeing the TNA X Division belt kind of like on the rise. People want it, you know, and it's like, I feel like Triple H would be doing such great booking, or Shawn Michaels. I mean, you could do it in NXT as well. The problem is, you know, once you get to the main roster, then there's no Cruiserweight Championship. That's where it could be kind of flawed. But I'm just saying from a perspective of wrestling and looking at some of these guys, we were talking about Axiom, we're talking about Nathan Frazier, you know, it's interesting to me when you look at WWE and you see that there's guys out there and you see that not everybody could be a world champion. And I know people are going to be like, well, it's a participation trophy or whatever. It's not.
No, because if you book it correctly, it's not a participation trophy. Look at the second world heavyweight title.
Yeah.
Take a look at that. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to call it a participation trophy, no, it's how you book it. It's how you that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's how you utilize this championship. So if you want to make a cruiserweight championship matter, you can, right?
Yeah.
I look at the paper or the specials, right? Day one, New Year's Revolution, New Year's Evil. I look at these specials, right? And I'm like, years ago, New Year's Revolution. Do you remember that pay-per-view only lasted 2 years?
Yeah.
And to bring it back because you've seen the potential in it. Right, because as long as you see the potential in any of these things, whether it be the cruiserweight title, TV title, whatever, like you said, as long as there's potential in it, I think under Triple H's booking, we have a little bit better of a shot, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say there about that.
It's interesting stuff. It's interesting.
100%.
I know for me, and I will say this because you and I, um, we're not necessarily the same in the way we view wrestling, but
No,
when I see WWE, NXT specifically, I feel like NXT is a good spot where they could try things out before they do it on the main roster.
100%.
And I would be curious to see if WWE would be willing to introduce another mid-card belt for NXT. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a Cruiserweight Championship. It could be like the European Championship or whatever, But I'm curious if maybe WWE would ever try something like that and maybe not even have a weight class for it, but a lot of these smaller guys would have a chance to go
Chance,
for it.
right.
What do you think about that? Even if you have another belt specifically for NXT, weight class doesn't matter, but this would be the belt that they go for.
Yeah, I think NXT, I mean, because again, right, I'm going to play back into the specials. Think about those, right? Because for
Yeah,
a long time, it was NXT Great American Bash,
yeah,
NXT New Year's Evil, things like that. You test them out on your third brand, right?
yeah,
And you can test the waters there. So I think that's fair to say. I think we can agree on this 100%, right? Because I don't mind seeing new things tried on NXT. I mind things being tried on SmackDown and Raw because of the fact that those shows have a specific flow that I'm used to. NXT I've known for changing over the years, right?
yeah,
So you can add change into NXT and I won't mind it because I understand that that's a place where change is probably going to occur the most.
yeah.
So I'm completely
It's
okay with it.
it is funny that I think a lot of good ideas that Vince ever had, just terrible execution. It's funny that I could see Triple H like redoing them and fixing them, but
Yeah.
I'm very stuck on the idea of what you said about the aura and like kind of like the perception of something because like even the 24/7 championship belt was it had its moments, bro. It had its moments,
Dude,
but then eventually,
think about the R-Truth stuff and how great that was,
but
right?
just
But it was just the
unfortunately,
stigma.
yeah.
That's it.
Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is. But I'm curious to know what you guys think, obviously, in the chat in regards to bringing back a 205 belt. I did want to get to this wonderful super chat because it has to do a lot with what we have been put on the title, which is the TNA WWE thing. So Richard Martinez dropped a $2 super chat. He says, with Worlds Collide, I can see a TNA WWE deal. So I kind of want to break this down. Then, Billy, I'm going to have you respond. Give
Yep,
me your
go ahead.
reaction. Let's converse here, guys. This might be a deep dive, but this is super important to talk about. Now, I would say about a month ago or so, there was it wasn't even a month ago. It was whenever maybe it was 2-3 weeks ago, whenever TNA announced that there was going to be a big signing. Give me 1 second. Okay, yeah, sorry. So basically, a couple of weeks ago, there was an announcement that TNA said, "Hey, it's going to be a big announcement, a big signing, the biggest signing in history. Find out, when worlds collide or whatever it may be." Like they had this huge statement made. Now, obviously, WWE NXT historically has used the term "worlds collide." TNA puts this out, and then obviously people were like, who could be the biggest signing?" And people were thinking maybe it's Punk or whatever, maybe whatever it was, whoever the biggest free agent was at the time. Now, obviously, you have people who are talking about this specific topic and they're saying, hey, maybe it's Dolph Ziggler or Mustafa Ali, which great signings, but it's not the biggest signing in TNA history. Then WWE announced that this Thursday on Peacock Live, Triple H is going to make a major announcement. And what was really interesting about this is it could be a variety of things. I talked about this on my main channel on my video where I said, look, specifically, like I could see this major announcement being WrestleMania 41. I also think it may not even be that major of an announcement, but I am very stuck on WWE making this announcement live on Peacock, which is happening at the same time as TNA. And I'm very stuck on the fact that when I watched NXT tonight, I just kept getting this. It sounds like there could be some synergies being cooked up between both companies. The reason why Trinity Fatu is rumored to go back to WWE. And I did hear, which I talked about this on a video on early December. I did hear a very small little chit chatter, and I talked about it on video where WWE was exploring working relationships with other companies. And they would be willing to work with other companies if it benefits WWE, obviously, and if it benefits other companies. If there's like a benefit for all involved, right? Now, one of the things that I need to mention here when talking about WWE working with TNA, I have to be really clear here. TNA is technically a Canadian company. WWE could do this on the premise of growing their international basis. But then I'm watching NXT tonight. We're hearing the rumors of Trinity coming back. We're hearing a ton of rumors of WWE's major announcement. WWE is working with AJPW on NXT tonight. Booker T shouts out AJPW, and he shouts out his wrestling promotion, Reality of Wrestling. Billy, I'm really starting to get the impression that WWE is going to be doing a talent exchange with TNA. And I do believe that NXT will have another PLE with TNA Worlds Collide. Tell me if I'm crazy.
No. Can I in fact, I'm going to.
The floor is yours.
I'm seeing a lot of people come on here and talk about who's this signing. Who is going to be the person where these worlds collide? Now, this is going to be a crazy assumption. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It may be a little crazy, and out of everything that has been said, this may be the craziest. But what if it's not really about signing a talent? What if, right? What if this has everything to do with signing each other, right? Two worlds are colliding.
Yeah.
I know this sounds crazy, right? But we're so focused on Hard to Kill and I can imagine that there actually is a person behind this. But what if it's all just a mirage? And like you said, on Thursday, Triple H is going to announce a major announcement over on Peacock. But what if the reality of this is that this is really going to be these two companies actually working together, and you eventually start to see, their global expansion, right? Going into Japan. Now, like you said, Canada. It looks like NXT is going to start with these companies. And keep in mind, they're not the New Japan Pros of the world. They're not the AEWs of the world. They're just smaller companies that offer a lot, right? TNA, whether you like to believe it or not, offers a whole lot for the WWE, especially with the rebrand, right?
What do you mean by that, though?
As in,
what do you think TNA offers WWE?
I think they offer them, number one, fresh faces, right? I think you also offer a just this diversity mix of talent, and then also, if you're a TNA fan, that means you're probably a really hardcore wrestling fan, right? Would you say so? So if you're a TNA fan, you're a really hardcore wrestling fan. In WWE, that's something for a long time, right? That they actually lost touch with was the hardcore wrestling fan. Now, WWE back in the early, they obviously created what the hardcore wrestling fan was, but people eventually got tired of them. But if you watch TNA, you're normally the hardcore wrestling fan. So my idea is not only are you bringing in this casual audience, but you're also gravitating in, even working with AJPW, you're grabbing that hardcore audience back, and you're like, you don't think so? I need to hear why. But that's my personal thought.
Yeah, no, I don't think WWE gives a rat's ass about the hardcore fan base.
No,
I don't think the hardcore fan base offers WWE any value.
okay.
I genuinely don't believe WWE cares at all what this hardcore fan base has to say. I think if you're a WWE fan as it is, you're already a hardcore fan of WWE.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of put this out there. TNA, their new advertisement shows premium live events. So TNA announces that their pay-per-views are no longer called pay-per-views. They're called premium live events.
Insane.
WWE NXT is playing nice with AJPW. They're playing nice with Reality of Wrestling. At the end of the day, WWE doesn't really get into the bed of anybody else unless they have plans to buy them out. However, if WWE and TNA work together, This is where things get a little bit more interesting to me, because I think very specifically, it's not about actually growing WWE's business. My question to you is, why do you think TNA, like, why is it valuable or whatever? And you're like, oh, because
The
it's a chance to
hardcore,
bring back the
yeah,
hardcore audience.
right.
I'll tell you right now, if Triple H has an announcement on Thursday live on Peacock, there is no circumstance in which Triple H is going to announce TNA's deal, because TNA is beneath WWE. However, what I would say is TNA would be the one to announce it on WWE, on Hard to Kill,
Right.
that they're working with WWE. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, though, is because there is something that TNA offers WWE, and it's not the fresh faces that you mentioned. It's
Okay.
not that. WWE has a talent pool unlike anybody else, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
But I would say that TNA at this stage of the game has one thing that WWE doesn't have, and it's the fact that TNA is a company that plays nice with WWE. They're a company who has had good business decisions involving WWE, right? We have seen some small collaborations between them.
Yep.
There's a good line of communication between the two.
Right.
But the third thing that TNA actually offers is television. And this is me speculating, but TNA does offer television. They are a company in North America that is on live, not live TV because they're pre-taped, but they're on TV.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, what I would say is, if TNA were to announce a working relationship with WWE, what does that do? You're not going to expect main roster stars jumping over,
No.
but NXT could jump over.
Yeah.
So TNA offers NXT the ability for wrestlers to go and get experience elsewhere. Now, going back to what I said earlier, I said NXT, or excuse me, I said TNA has, they're a Canadian-based company. WWE has the NXT North American Championship. Now, I can see WWE utilizing their North American Championship or creating a new championship, rebranding the North American Championship to a title that is defended everywhere. And this would be WWE's way of having their WWE footprint in other companies. Because, long story short, WWE's global plan, it's real. It's real. WWE is doing a global invasion. They are going to Japan. They are going to go to several continents, several countries.
And they're going to just rush them.
They are going to grow their global footprint. But you have a small relationship with TNA. You get Naomi in the Battle Royal, in the Royal Rumble. Mickey James, if she wants to come back, she could. You have, you want to bring Josh Alexander into WWE NXT, you can.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
WWE
would love to see that.
And WWE can take some of these younger talents and whatever and put them on TNA television. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think there's synergies there, but it's a little bit different for the reasons you mentioned. And I did want to make one last point in regards to TNA and WWE. NXT is moving to the CW. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard people talk, including myself, about TNA's lack of a TV deal. Anthem owns Access TV. Anthem owns Impact Wrestling. It makes a lot of sense for Access TV to carry TNA. However, if Scott D'Amore is looking for a TV deal, there would actually be a lot of reasons as to why TNA going to the CW could make a lot of sense. Because TNA goes live on the CW, NXT goes live on the CW. Now you actually have two wrestling promotions cross-promoting each other
on the same network.
And it's not TNA growing WWE, but it's WWE using TNA as an outlet to grow some of its talent that are a little bit less inexperienced. And ultimately, it makes your TV partners happy, which the CW, I'm sure, would be very happy with WWE. Because if TNA brought in 200, 300,000 viewers, NXT's bringing in 1 million or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If they're bringing in viewership and CW wants to be live wrestling and live sports, I think the cool thing about that is the fact that you can have WWE in a situation where talent go in, they get out, they're working, and WWE can utilize some of those TNA talent. I don't think that's a very difficult concept to swallow. What do you think?
No, I don't. I don't think. It's funny that we're talking about all this, right? Because I did text you earlier and I asked you about the TNA Plus app, right? And I asked you, I was like, hey, is it worth it? Do you think, I asked you if it had completely switched over from the Impact thing. Yeah. You said, yeah, absolutely. It reminds me a lot of the WWE network.
Endeavor made it. Endeavor Streaming made the app, and that was, that's their original thing. So there is some synergies there. And obviously you got to factor in, I think a lot of people forget WWE is not owned by Vince. So
no, not anymore.
It's not out of the realm.
No, especially if they're working with Endeavor. I think that was like step number one to be like, oh, there's something there. You know what I mean?
I do think this part, I thought maybe I had one last point. This is my last point. I think a lot of people underestimate I think I think wrestling fans in general underestimate what Endeavor and WWE are willing to do. Historically speaking, Vince McMahon, yeah, he had a couple working relationships back in the day and stuff like that. But like modern day WWE didn't play nice. And I think Endeavor is kind of looking at this like, hey, we can make a shit ton of money going global. And we get a Canadian-based company. We get a UK-based company. We get the European companies, right? UK, Europe, NXT UK or Europe or whatever they want to call it.
Yep.
NXT Latin America, NXT this, NXT that.
Whatever you want to do.
WWE, in order for that to work, you got to work with companies. And WWE, historically, it was rumored that they would go and buy these companies. I don't know if I necessarily believe that they will buy companies, but they will set up these performance centers, set up these shows, and they will use it as a way to grow their global footprint. And I just think that's what I think they're willing to do it. I don't even think they have to buy them out.
No, I don't. But if you look at like track record, right? And obviously we're looking at Vince's track record and we're not looking at, Triple H and not even Triple H, but Endeavor's track record. These, you kind of look back at it and you kind of get a little worried, right? Because if you think about wrestling and how it even originated, it started with territories.
Yeah.
Right? You had to you stepped into somebody's territory, right? So that's technically what if they're going to go global, they're stepping into All Japan Pro Wrestling's territory.
Which, by the way, not to cut you off, AJPW, not really well managed. Just kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah, no. And I'm not even saying these companies are, again, I mean, they're not the New Japan Pros of the world. They're not the AEWs of the world. They're the smaller companies that you really can step into, right? Let's be honest. AEW doesn't need WWE to succeed or to succeed on their own. You know what I'm saying? New Japan Pro Wrestling doesn't need WWE to succeed on their own. You want to know who might need WWE though? In just the smallest little fashion, All Japan Pro Wrestling. You want to know who might need WWE? TNA, right? Because they're the smaller company. They're not getting a lot of friction. Like you just said a couple minutes ago, the two of them colliding on the CW network would be great for TNA, right?
But it's good. It's good for WWE too. Yeah,
it is. It is. I'm not saying that it's not, but what I'm trying to say is I think the track record behind all of it is that WWE could eventually buy out these companies, really, if they wanted to, and let them become whatever the case may be. Now, TNA is obviously a little bit of a stretch, but I do think like All Japan Pro and like you said, not well managed. It's a place they could easily go by. Start NXT Japan.
We'll see.
Yeah,
TNA is calling their pay-per-views premium live events. WWE shouting out other promotions on NXT. It's clearly a different WWE. You never really know. I think it happens. I fully predict WWE and TNA work together more often. I say like an actual partnership for sure. Richard Martinez did drop another super chat. He says, I can see a TNA NXT Invasion storyline. I see the opposite, actually. Billy, you could tell me what you think. I think WWE gets X amount of stars for the Royal Rumble and whatever else, for the talent share. And I think WWE will put some of these smaller, younger guys from NXT into TNA.
Yeah, I agree. The whole storyline invasion angle. I mean, if you, again, looking back at past history, stay as far away from that as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is we'll just use a Josh Alexander, right? Or maybe not a Josh Alexander. That's a bad one. But we'll just a random name insert here from TNA goes up to the main roster, right? And all these people don't have. I mean, think about like what happened with like DIY recently, right? where not many people knew who they were in the beginning. It took them a
Well,
little.
that's why this doesn't work on the main roster.
That's
It
what
works
I'm
for
saying.
NXT. It doesn't work on the main roster.
It could work for NXT. I could see it working there because they just be like, oh, it's a bunch of new people that just popped up out of nowhere. Makes sense.
I mean, literally every person that works in WWE NXT backstage like worked in TNA. Like people forget, like Jeremy Borash, like he's cooking, and now I think he's even up on the
Borash
main
is great.
roster. I'm just saying there's some synergies there. I think it could happen. And
Yeah.
I think WWE won't shy away from it. How they go about it, how they do it. Richard Martinez, I can see something like this happen, but I don't think TNA invades WWE at all. But I will say there are a lot of matchups I would appreciate from a talent exchange. But I think a lot of this is also wishful thinking too. I think it's interesting that WWE is using premium live events. TNA is now using it. Endeavor Streaming created their app for them. There's something cooking. What is it in full? I don't think WWE announces it Thursday.
They in there cooking something up.
I don't think Triple H is going to announce it. I think it would be beneath WWE to announce a partnership with TNA, and that's coming from a TNA fan. I don't think it makes sense for WWE to announce it, but I do think TNA does announce it. I think Hard to Kill is going to be insane, and I cannot wait to do a live review on this channel for it. Thank you, Richard, for the super chats. We got another one from Scripps for $5. He says, I see a deal where TNA will officially become a WWE farm territory, making NXT a legit third brand. So this could actually be something that I would say could have some substance, right?
Yeah.
NXT clearly has something happening with the NIL program and the Performance Center and all of these different things. I could see a scenario where NXT, especially going into the CW in 2024, I can see a situation where WWE treats NXT as a third brand and WWE uses TNA kind of as the developmental. However, what I would say is I can see it happening. I don't think TNA would change their entire product for that specific reason, but I could see TNA saying, hey, Riley Osborne, you're talented. Let's put you in the Ultimate X match. And I could see them doing something like that. I don't see it being a scenario where like WWE would control the creative for TNA, if that makes sense.
I don't think you have to completely change the TNA product for this to work. Like you just said, you throw Riley Osborne or maybe Obafemi, right? Let him go get some shine down there real fast, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
That's just me throwing names out, by the way. But using TNA as that spot to where it's like, hey, go shine some more, go polish yourself, come back in 6 months. It's almost like the G League for basketball.
Yeah.
Right? Let it be a G League. Why not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I love that you said that because that's really what it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's what it kind of is. But I think one of the problems with the whole G League idea is, you gotta, and I feel bad for saying this, but I don't think New Japan's deal with AEW is that special.
I don't think, is it even still happening?
Yeah, it's happening. I mean, they still do the Forbidden Door stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They play very nice with each other, and that's cool. But I think sometimes NJPW talent haven't necessarily looked that great in AEW.
No, I don't think they get enough shine.
I don't. And I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm just saying in certain circumstances, I don't think it's benefited them.
I'm gonna bring up a time, with Forbidden Door. I mean, I'm not gonna do like this huge deep dive with this, but Okada, he was on AEW TV, and people like I can imagine if I were to ask anybody in this chat, they'd have been like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that."
Oh yeah,
which sucks because Okada is outstanding. You know what I mean? But didn't get the good shine that he deserved. He did a fatal 4-way match for was it the IWGP belt?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Okada, when he came into AEW, they had a fatal 4-way for the IWGP at Forbidden Door, I think it was, right? My point exactly.
No, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. My bad.
I'm just completely distraught at the idea, and I think I agree with you in the sense of like they are no longer like it doesn't make enough sense. I genuinely feel that way. Right now, AEW just has completely fumbled the bag with New Japan. It doesn't feel as serious as it needs to. But other than that, that's what I guess we will talk about there. So another thing that I really wanted to discuss during all of this, honestly, also tonight there was Tiffany Stratton and Fallon Henley, actually, which was actually a really good match, and it was going to be the two of them facing off. One was going to become the servant, the other one was the ranch. I forget exactly what it was, but they were actually going to the match itself. It was a good match, and I love seeing Fallon Henley go off on her own. I believe that her going off on her own was probably the best thing that could have happened for her, and obviously her continuing this feud with Tiffany Stratton was going to be the best thing for her. She definitely deserves it. I'll say that 100%. But yeah, no, 100% agree that, or we'll say that Fallon Henley, it's been time for her. It's been a long time coming, and then obviously having her beat a person like Tiffany Stratton is completely outstanding, and interested to see how they're going to play into this storyline and if it's going to continue on. I think now this just adds more stipulation, and I think as time goes, we may see a match between the two of them over the course of like Judgment Day, Vengeance Day. I do believe that we're going to see that over time. And another big match was actually Blair Davenport and Lyra Valkyria for the NXT Women's Championship, which me and Ango have not discussed yet. And that match was actually very, very, very. It's a really good match, and I believe people got to see a little bit more of Blair Davenport. And if you guys do not know, she did work in AEW a long time ago. But you got to see a little bit of her ring work. You got to see a little bit of her in-ring work tonight, and you actually got to see her have a really good match with Lyra. And I believe that down the road, Blair Davenport will actually become a NXT Women's Champion. I just think they're kind of playing the waiting game right now with her, which is a little crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But I do believe that Blair Davenport is going to be a NXT Women's Champion here eventually.
They're definitely cooking with that women's division tonight. I mean, I think you're 100% right with Blair. Something to pay attention to is what they're doing with Tatum Paxley.
Yep.
And there's a couple other things that obviously we saw tonight, with Tiffany and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did get a super chat. I may have skipped it.
Yep.
So I apologize. From Jana. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hot take, but I want Mickie to be in TNA. I hate how WWE did Mickie James in her last run. She is a legend and can still draw. She is a valuable veteran to have. So we're talking about women's division, especially in NXT. We're talking about the women in NXT. We're talking about some of these things that are happening. Blair is a phenomenal talent, but she lost to Lyra Valkyria. You see Tiffany, which, by the way, Tiffany is going to have some really cool segments on NXT, I'm sure, in the farms.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be some stuff that they're cooking there.
It'll be funny, dude. It's going to be hilarious.
But it's appropriate to mention this super chat because of the fact that Mickie James is a longtime veteran. I can see a lot of women benefiting in NXT from working with Mickie James. Absolutely. So I do kind of want to throw that out there, that there is a lot of potential there with WWE. And I think there's a lot of potential there with WWE and TNA working in terms of, the talent shares and stuff. But if WWE can actually have Mickie James come in and she does, let's say she doesn't want to wrestle, but she wants to be a producer of some sort, which, by the way, I can confirm that she had a very good, big influence in TNA that was very, very incredible. Based on what I saw with my own eyes, I can see WWE NXT benefiting from that. So I did want to kind of throw that out there. I did.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at it, her husband obviously being in the WWE now, I think it makes sense for her to do some kind of work with WWE. Not going to say it's far-fetched.
Yeah. Because we're talking about the women's division as well.
Yeah.
One thing I got to remind people that I feel this way. Billy, you can tell me what you think.
Okay.
The cringy acting in the women's segments, the backstage stuff before Jade and Gigi. I love them, bro. I love all the women on here, and I think they're all great and stuff. But one thing I want WWE to do, and maybe you can kind of tell me differently, but these backstage locker room segments are the ones I'm specifically talking about. Just these ones specifically, they seem to come out like really like forced. What would you do differently with these segments? Because Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade, like it's logical and it makes sense or whatever, but I feel like every time they're in the locker room, there's a whole bunch of stuff like I don't know. It's just it kind of comes off bad, I guess.
Well, so the problem with it is, right? When you see a bunch of women, right, sitting around, and even men, I'm not going to say just the women,
Yeah.
but you see them sitting around, right? And when you see them doing that, you can already kind of guess, like, oh, all these women are going to jump in. These two are going to be the main subject here. So in this instance, Cora Jade and Gigi Dolan, they're the main objectives here. But you see all these other women, and you're like, okay, I know this is about to get heated, blah, blah, blah. So what would I do different? Let it feel more natural. And I know that it's a little hard maybe because these are just people learning, but I do believe if you're like, hey, go ahead and be yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
I think that would be best fit there.
Do you think they should change the setting of where those promos are taking place? Only reason why I ask, I loved what they did with the Ridge Holland interview thing, and it felt real and it felt authentic and it didn't feel forced. But it's a different setting. It's an interview. Do you think they should kind of do different settings in interviews or different settings for these backstage segments? Because one thing I think WWE can learn from AEW, when Jim Ross would do the sit downs with two talent, right? Like maybe that could be something that WWE does as well. Maybe it's, a Hall of Famer. Maybe it's Booker T. Maybe it's Vic Joseph. I don't know. WWE's main roster was doing it with Michael Cole, with like Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Remember?
Yeah.
Like, is that a solution to it? Do you think that would come across a little bit more authentic? I don't know. To me specifically, I just feel like a setting change or something needs to happen differently. Because they're all fairly logical and they all make sense, but there's just
the logic is completely there. But yes, I do believe that you need to. Something's got to give here because it's starting again, right? Because there's these little nitpicks that we can take with NXT, and this is one of them that it's like, all right, this is annoying at some point. You know what I'm saying? And that is just one of those things that is completely annoying.
Yeah. We did get another super chat I want to get to from Will Chisholm for $5. He says, could WWE working with AJPW wanting to work with Stardom and now this TNA stuff, is there a chance it's a mega show happening one day? This is a great question. Honestly, I'm going to say no. It's not realistic for WWE to do a super show for the main roster.
Okay.
For NXT, I could see Jeremy Borash telling Triple H and Shawn Michaels, let's do a World Cup where we take all the talent and kind of like how TNA used to do it. I could see Jeremy Borash giving Triple H some advice to do that. But other than that, I don't see WWE doing a super show with their main roster. What do you think, Billy?
Well, so my thing about this is no, I don't see it happening at all. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. If WWE is above, right, all of these companies, why do they need to?
But if you're doing NXT,
yeah,
you don't think so?
No, I mean, because WWE, the brand, is bigger than all of these companies. So why do they need to? What would be the purpose of WWE needing to do that?
Because WWE, in order to grow their global footprint, because keep in mind, if WWE is going to open up an NXT Japan, open up all of those other shows, then WWE doing that global expansion, it's like, oh, by the way, this is the NXT Super Show.
So this is one thing that I've always had like a little gripe against about this whole expansion thing, right? Is let's be real here. People in Japan know who WWE is. A lot of people do.
Yeah, but WWE, it's not the part of the global expansion is having a footprint there, like leaving your footprints behind. So WWE constantly having content that's cycled specifically for that audience, they're like being there, like being foot on the ground.
Yeah, I get that to an extent, but at the same time, like if you look back at like 2015, I think it was Finn Balor, and I think that
was it Brock?
No, it was Finn. It was Finn Balor and it was NXT. It was Finn Balor and Kevin Owens. It was in Japan, where they had the title change hands in Japan.
But that wasn't an NXT show, was it?
Yeah.
No,
Yes, it
no.
yes, it
Hold on.
was. Yes, it
I'm
was.
having a brain fart, dude. My chat is going crazy right now. I just remember they did one, and it was like 5 a.m, and I wanted to cry because it was so insane.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that was an NXT show.
Beast in the East. No, it wasn't.
Beast in
WWE.
the East.
Hold on. WWE Beast in the East. That was not an NXT show, brother.
Was
I
it
know what
not?
this was. This was 2015, July 4th, 2015, in
Yes, but the
Sumida,
NXT
Tokyo, Japan.
the NXT title changed hands.
They
on
might
this
have
show.
had that, yes, because it was Kevin Owens against Finn Balor, I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
Okay, now let me look this up. This was a WWE, technically speaking, if I remember, it was a house show, but then they made it a WWE network show. It was not a takeover. You got me fucking looking dumb right now. I'm like, there's no way. But I know what you're talking about. Beast in the East, and then the NXT Championship was there. Yes.
And Trevor 93 just said that Brock was on that show.
Yeah, because it was a house show technically, but it was for the main roster, and then they did.
Yeah,
the
see,
NXT
because
thing.
I got confused because the only clips that I've personally ever seen from that show were Finn Balor and Kevin Owens. I've never actually gone out to even see what it was. I just kind of figured. I was like, it was probably an NXT. Maybe NXT was trying to house shows at this point.
No, it wasn't an NXT house show. I remember specifically it was main roster. It was supposed to be a main roster house show, and then they had the NXT Championship, and I think that was largely due to Finn Balor because of the Demon character.
But even there, to go back to the point that we're talking about here, that crowd looked like a decent sized crowd.
Let's take a look on Google. Let me see. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, normal, decent sized crowd. So again, I just think.
But they also had Brock Lesnar on the card, so.
He worked in Japan. That's a perfect person to.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
they had people that were known in Japan too. Don't get it twisted. It's not like WWE is not popular in Japan, but WWE having a global expansion. The point of it is to have talent development, bringing in talent, having their brand everywhere. Yeah. It's WWE wants to be the only show in town. And the reality is with WWE working with smaller companies and buying companies and stuff like that, that's how they get there. Yeah. It's not like WWE needs to be in Canada, but the purpose of TNA, the logic of that is, they're in Canada. Like, people don't realize how popular AEW is in Canada, and WWE isn't necessarily the most popular there. A lot of people forget that TNA is also very big in the UK. So, like, there's perks of working with other companies. In regards to the Super Show, the only way it happens is if it's NXT Global, right? NXT, like a World Cup tournament type of thing. I could see them doing a Super Show.
He says that. I still disagree.
Yeah, that's cool. Fair enough. We take another super chat. A couple more. Justin says, I would love to see Josh Alexander versus Gunther. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because I feel like I've talked about this match a lot. It's definitely one I would love to watch.
Yeah.
The WWE audience doesn't know Josh Alexander, though. So
which sucks.
The main roster stuff ain't going to happen. It ain't going to be on the main roster.
Nope.
I don't think so. But NXT, for sure, I could see a possibility. Rick Corrales says, I hope we don't see a trios belt until they fix the tag team titles. I'm not sure if this is in regards to WWE or AEW because I feel like both companies need to fix their tag titles. It seems like it's a work in progress for both, though. But I would definitely agree with that.
You got some fixing you got to do there, but I'm not gonna actually. I'm gonna feel a little bit differently about this. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I feel like a trios title may not be the worst thing in the world.
I'll tell you off the rip right now. We were talking about the Cruiserweight Championship. That shit sounds way better than a trios belt.
But if you think about it, right? If you're going to build factions, right? Because that's what they're doing on the main roster. Again, these are things that you can try over on NXT, but you can build factions and you can have these trios belts. So you can have these titles while fixing other titles, right? You can go fix the tag team championships, right? And the tag team titles don't even need all that much fixing. No, you just need to utilize your tag teams. That's it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like LWO, for instance, that's a perfect example of a faction that's working, right? In the Judgment Day, right? Because Dom Mysterio is just kind of Rhea Ripley's, I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I mean. He's doing that when he could be building himself as this, and don't get me wrong, he's wrestling a lot of matches, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But he could work really well under a Damian Priest and Finn Balor and could utilize the two of them while all working together, if that makes sense. He's learning from all three of them while being in the ring together. You know what I mean? So there are certain variables here that I think a trios championship could work in the WWE. I, again, don't feel like you need to. Is it something that I think that WWE needs to focus on or put all their focus into? No, absolutely not. In fact, I don't think you even have to do it right now. Get yourself more factions, do those things, whatever. But is it something that I can see in the future? Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And if you don't think so, I think you're wrong. I think you're lying to me, and you can't even look at me with a straight face and say it.
No, man, it's because I just feel like there's a lot more potential if they just introduced the Cruiserweight Championship and stuff like that. Me personally, I will say this though, to be fair, one thing that NXT does exceptionally well, and I don't think they'll ever get credit for this. I don't think people look at this as a big deal. They have all these segments, they have all these matches. They do a really good job with their women's division. They do a really good job with booking decisions and stuff like that. They're not perfect, but it's a fairly good show. But the one thing NXT needs to get credit more for what they do is putting more people on television on an episode. For 2 hours of an episode, you see a plethora of women who are constantly featured on TV. You see multiple tag teams and trios involved on TV. You have a very good balance of your main event talent, your mid card, all on TV, and then the promo segments and stuff like that as well. One thing that WWE NXT will never get credit for.
Can I cut into you a little bit here? And one thing I want to say about wrestling, I think as a whole, right, is that when we talk about wrestling and we talk about all these people getting put on TV, half the battle, and I'm kind of going to go back to what we were just talking about with the trios championships. Half the battle is when I watch a match tonight with the 6-man tag with the LWO and whatnot. I look at that and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is great. It's a great wrestling match. But why, Anthony, why does it feel like none of these things are important?
What didn't feel important?
The 6-man tag match where you're building up Carlito, right?
Yeah.
Why doesn't that feel important? Why doesn't that gravitate me as a fan? Because the match itself was great. I just did not care about it. Why?
That's a very good question, Billy. I think that sounds like a you problem.
But you understand, and you know exactly what I'm trying to say here. Because again, some stories matter. Why don't all of them?
I mean, as a wrestling fan,
right,
you're going to have, I think, in my opinion, you're going to have the certain things that gravitate towards you in general. Like for me, it's not the popular opinion online, but like I love storylines with like Retribution or the Devil, right, in AEW and stuff. I love the cringy, like I love stuff like that. For me personally, I don't like the constant tag teams where it's like we break up because we have to. Yeah. Like I break up with you because you stabbed me in the back, right? So like last week we saw Briggs and Jensen, they broke up and it was amicable. Like I like that. Why? Because it's not the typical same shit that Triple H used to do with NXT all the time, where it's like, oh, we're best friends and you're not my best friend anymore. Like I like certain storylines. I think it's just a preference in what you like. Me personally, I think LWO and Orlando Combat Club, which I will always call them that. Like to me, it wasn't anything more than go out and wrestle. You know, obviously there's some small stuff before, but this wasn't anything crazy. But it didn't have to be anything crazy for you not to really feel that that excited about it. I think that's just your preference. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal or not. like I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I kind of want to go back to NXT, and there was something that really felt off about the show, and I wanted to ask you your thoughts on it. The NXT tag team titles themselves, right? Don't
Mm-hmm.
feel all that important. Would I be crazy for saying that?
I mean, they've been telling a story. They've been telling multiple stories with their tag team division for the last few months. I mean, for me personally, I thought the segment that they did with Adriana Rizzo and the family with
I
Joe
did.
Gacy,
I did like the segment for
I
what it was.
liked it. I also really liked the OTM backstage promo, um, or the vignette that they did. I really think Scripps and Bronco Lima and just the whole group in general, out the mud, it's fire, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Seems very modern day. What was the
I
faction with
feel
Swerve?
well, no, hold on, like Hit Row
It was
is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
yeah. It felt like very Hit Row style, out the mud, Hit Row.
No,
Kind
not
of.
at all.
No, you don't think so?
I would say if anything, it was more of like the Mogul Embassy vibe, kind of like
Okay, yeah. All fair things there.
I don't know. Somebody in my Discord was saying like it kind of reminds of when Trench and Parker Boudreaux were like together and stuff, but like these guys actually talk. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll say this much. I personally think the tag team division is not the strongest in NXT.
Mm-mm.
I don't think it's bad by any means. I think they've been telling stories with their tag team division. I also think it's at a very interesting time because the Dusty Classic. So I think once the Dusty Classic goes through, then we'll start to really see some big stuff. But I mean, if it doesn't feel important to you,
Yeah, and I'm not saying that.
I don't think it's a big deal if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I don't think it was like the end all be all to the show, right? And I love the family. You know what I'm saying? I think they're good people to have the belts on, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I just again, it just over time it feels like these feel less important as times have gone on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I loved the Nikita Lyons and Blair segment. I mean, I love Nikita Lyons.
I
So
love Nikita Lyons too.
I love her too. The way she slapped that wall. Ah, she scared her.
Dude,
Very good.
I love seeing her on my TV.
No, I thought I see where you're coming from. I don't think there's any holes in the storytelling aspect of it. I also think right now with NXT, because there is a lot that's going on in 2 hours, there's always going to be something that doesn't feel as important, right?
Yeah.
However, it's not random. Like, let's make that one thing clear. This is the biggest difference between AEW and WWE in this regard. Naturally, you're going to have some stories that hit a little bit better,
100%.
but everything that happens on NXT television literally has a roadmap to why it's happening. And it doesn't matter what anybody tells me. There's a lot of examples you can use, especially on New Year's Evil. Even like the Braun Breaker and Vin Diesel thing, right? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Vin Diesel and Baron Corbin. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What's his name in Fast and Furious? Dom Toretto?
Dom Toretto. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, it's like, to me, it's like whatever. I think it's a weird thing that they're doing, but I'm sure it's going to lead to some cool stuff. But the reason why it's happening, it's kind of like what Baron Corbin said, we're a-holes, So it's not that everything has to be, oh my God, it's so incredible. For me, when I watch a TV show, there has to be a reason why it's happening.
Yeah, and with the whole Braun Breaker, Baron Corbin thing, I think that's one of those tag teams that you're not really expecting that could potentially work down the line. You know what I mean?
It's going to be a recipe for disaster at the end. One of them are going to freaking break up with
Well,
each
that's
other.
the whole point, right? When you
Yeah.
see these guys working together, you're like, okay, well, we know how this is going to end. But for me, as a fan, it's okay, right? Because it's simple.
Keep going. Oh, no,
Yeah.
actually, hold on. No. Hold on.
Okay.
Somebody did this in NXT, and I'm pretty sure it was Samoa Joe. And I'm trying to think of who it was with. Finn Balor, maybe?
Okay.
I need to see who it was. I was right. Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, right? Years ago, they won the Dusty Classic, and it was a makeshift tag team. And I was curious if maybe this is kind of the route that they go with Baron Corbin and Dom Toretto. But I just kind of want to throw that out there. I can't really.
You're doing things with them, right? With those two, that it's almost like a wash, rinse, repeat cycle thing. That
Yeah.
again, like you're talking about Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, easily could work. right? Because you just had to look up what happened. So it took it took a part in your brain that you were like, oh, I got to go figure out what exactly it was.
Yeah.
And then WWE is like, yeah, no, I remember that, right? I can recall this.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man. Very, very, very good stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, no. But I will say that this NXT show, it felt like a overall good show. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I have a very, again, it's just based on how I critique wrestling. Like everything makes sense, everything happens. I love the fact that Carlito returned and Joaquin Wilde basically flew like a million feet into the air. That was just crazy. It was like such a I will say
scary,
too,
though.
Blair and Lyra Valkyria was fun. Like I feel like right now there's something about WWE and even more specifically this week, I feel like it's been dialed up a notch where it's like they're just ready to go. Like it just feels like everything's coming at you very quickly and like
The
they're giving
pacing
you matches.
in the
Yeah, the
WWE
pacing
for sure.
even I know I'm not expecting massive changes with Kevin Dunn gone, but I do even feel like in a sense like there's certain changes there that they've made where it's like not as crazy with the camera cuts.
Yeah.
But
We're about to walk into a certain time in the WWE, and I'll go live and say this, right? I think we're going to walk into a time where WWE is going to be more popular than they've ever been. Call me crazy, right? And I get it. Back in the 90s, TV viewings and whatever, ratings, whatever you want to call them, social media exists now. And when somebody like CM Punk I know this is completely off range, but CM Punk popping up and does, the highest social media traction that they've ever done, that tells me only one thing, that they had plans to go into this year and be bigger than they've ever been.
yeah,
And it started yesterday with Raw, and obviously having 3 specials in a row, right?
Yeah.
You do Raw, NXT, SmackDown. Yeah, WWE, they're about to fast track something. I'm going to sit here and say it. Would you agree with that?
I do. I also agree with this. Well, I don't know if it's not. I wouldn't say agree, but something interesting was Roxanne, which I didn't talk about. But
Yeah.
Chester says, "What do you guys think about Roxanne? Is she the new AJ Lee or something?" And she's sick, bro. She's so good, and she's like teasing a heel turn, which they've kind of been teasing a little bit with Roxanne, and her and Ariana Grace, and Roxanne is a hell of a talent, but sometimes I always look at Roxanne where it's like, I kind of want to see her switch gears a little bit. I kind of want to see her do something different. Tonight she did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes back to like, oh, whether it's a good or bad show. For me, it's like, I care about those little things. I care to see how characters evolve and progress. You know what I mean? And this is where I think NXT, yeah, I can admit, like sometimes the promos and the backstage stuff could be a little cringy. Like I don't deny that.
But something like Roxanne, in her doing what she was doing tonight, it makes it feel okay. It makes it feel fine. Now, one thing I will say about this Roxanne heel turn, right, the one that they're teasing, is that it almost feels a little bit too sudden for me.
No, Billy, you're not paying attention every week.
No,
Billy, you're not paying attention every week.
You're going off and you're not hearing me, right? Because whether I'm watching every week or not, you're not hearing me, right? Because I understand the concept of her turning heel and how important it could be to a long-term viewer. But when I look at it, and when I look at Roxanne, right, one thing that I remember from Roxanne is when the whole thing happened and she got hurt, and then Booker T came into the ring and checked on her, right? That's one thing I remember Roxanne for. So when I take a look at this, I'm like, she almost reminds me of what Bayley was for a long time.
Okay.
To where she's almost like that smiley face. Because one thing, it's starting to irk my soul. One thing about wrestling that I can't stand, right, is we see heel turns, whether they be logical or not. We see heel turns and babyface turns happen a little bit too often, right? Why can't somebody like Roxanne Perez make her name as a babyface in general? Because, dude, I'm not going to lie, as a fan, that's what I want to see. I want to see a baby face every so often, like Roxanne Perez, the feel-good story, because it only comes every so often, and she's one person who I could look at and be like, you're not bad. Look at her. Tell me Roxanne looks like a bad person. She doesn't.
Nah, but she looked crazy when she was smiling doing the submission.
And I could put a smile on my face and put you in a headlock.
It's just different vibe for Roxanne, who's the go-lucky, happy person all the time. But I will tell you this. I will tell you off the rip. I disagree about heel turns, baby face turns. In NXT, this is about character progression and finding your character. So either you're putting Roxanne on a very big pedestal where you think she's like ready, that's fine. I think Roxanne is ready as well, but I don't think Roxanne is going to get called up anytime soon. I think that's one thing that you have to remember with NXT when you're watching NXT. It's not like these people are going to try different things and do different things while they're in NXT versus the main roster. And once they're ready to get called up, they just do what works. So like Roxanne Bailey was always that baby face, and it followed her from NXT to the main roster.
Yeah, because but when you're changing so much, right?
But that's not happening with Roxanne though.
But my thing is if you're changing so much on NXT, how are you ever going to get something to fully stick?
Okay, so apply that to Roxanne. Roxanne's been a babyface, right?
Yes.
This entire time, right?
Yes.
And would you agree that Roxanne's been successful as a babyface on NXT?
I would agree.
Okay. Would you agree that Roxanne is over as a babyface on NXT?
I would agree.
Okay. So if Roxanne turns heel,
what if it doesn't get over?
What would not get over? She's already been successful as a babyface and people already cheer for her, and she turns heel, people will be shocked, right? You can't play the what if game on character changes.
You're right.
Roxanne has been champion. She's accomplished a lot. She's already been in a lot of great storylines with a lot of the top women. You turn her heel. Now you get to see what she's like as a heel, just like Cora Jade, right? Cora Jade, I would say it actually took a lot longer for Roxanne to turn heel, which, by the way, she hasn't technically turned heel yet.
Right.
But Cora Jade was babyface, and then they kind of turned her heel rather quickly, right?
Although it seems like Cora Jade's going back to the babyface role. Is that weird for me to say?
I don't think so. I think Gigi Dolan's the babyface in that story.
Well, she is. But I think everything that we're seeing on social media with Cora Jade and the whole CM Punk thing, I think that is bringing a real life character vibe.
Sure. Yeah, that's out of kayfabe. That's not on television. So I won't judge that.
Okay. All right. That's on you, right? That's on you, because for somebody watching like myself, I'm going to judge that.
Okay. Austin Theory is a heel on TV, but Austin Theory is meeting with kids and shaking their hands and taking pictures.
You're right.
You see what I'm saying?
You're right. Yeah, I'll put my hand up to that one.
Yeah. I judge the TV show, Billy.
Yeah,
I don't judge
That's fair. The real life person, I get it.
Yeah, they're all baby faces in real life. What do you think? Roxanne's a piece of shit in real life? I'm just saying.
You never know.
I'm just saying. I haven't heard one bad story. So,
but I will say though, like watching Roxanne Perez, I do believe she's an incredible talent, and I do believe she's going to make whatever happens work. But what I'm trying to get at here is that the constant change. I get it. It needs to happen, especially with character work.
But the constant change is not happening with Roxanne.
And what I'm trying to say is, and I think you just missed what I said, is that no, you're right. It may not be happening with her, but it happens to a lot of people, especially in NXT. Yeah. Right? Would I be wrong for saying that? So how?
Yeah, actually, I would disagree with you, but yeah, I see what you're saying, but I do disagree with you.
Okay, why?
I mean, I think one in NXT, when you see people turn heel or turn babyface, first of all, it's developmental, so that's part of the process. But also, when it does happen, it's not just random. Like there's something that happens to like justify the heel turns.
Right. Like
Braun Breaker went from babyface to heel, but why? It got stale with him as a babyface, and he's staying in NXT a lot longer. And then it turns out he turns heel, and he's a fucking legitimate badass. So what happens with Braun Breaker?
And I like that.
It probably changed his entire career.
100%.
Now, I think the issue that you're saying, I get where you're coming from, but I think the issue I think the thing that could be an issue is if they were constantly changing characters, like actual characters, and getting repackaged all the time.
I think changing their behavior. I think I have a perfect person in my mind for Joe Gacy.
In terms of what?
Just constantly changing a character or a gimmick, just
when.
Dude, look at the whole what
he went from the dyad.
Yes. Okay.
So now he is an estranged person, has a couple screws loose. You're telling me that's an issue? You're telling me it's an issue that, by the way, the dyad, the schism thing, the dyad are gone from the company.
Yes,
right?
they're with TNA now, correct?
Yeah, Ava Raine is Shawn Michaels, which, by the way, today they made sense of why Ava Raine's been doing this
That
stuff.
was important.
So they've done that, and now Joe Gacy for a while now has been teasing this change, which doesn't really seem that far-fetched from what he was with Schism, to be honest, but it seems like it's an extension branch of that. But what I'm trying to explain to you is, like, you say Joe Gacy, and I'm sitting here being like, they didn't even repackage him. This guy has always had screws loose, and now it's even worse. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just feel like for me, maybe it's a little bit because I never personally got interested in a person like Joe Gacy. It was hard for me too because first, the gimmick was stale, right?
Okay.
With the dyad, it was very stale. And now what he's doing, he's just this guy who has screws loose, and it feels like there's no, like, where's the payoff come?
Yeah.
So that's just my own personal take on Joe Gacy. That's just one person that came to mind when talking about this in my head.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't agree, because when Joe Gacy was doing the character with Parker Boudreaux, when he was doing Schism, which, by the way, Schism, in my opinion, was not stale at the
they
end
fumbled the whole him and Parker Boudreaux thing because that was going to be the thing that worked, in my humble opinion.
Billy, you're telling me they fumbled Joe Gacy and Parker Boudreaux?
Yeah. Yeah. In my eyes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, they fumbled Parker Boudreaux and Joe Gacy. Harland. I'm sorry,
Harland. Yeah.
Yeah, they fumbled him. The guy was so good. He was so good, and I loved all of his potential until he went to AEW and joined Swerve, and even Tony Khan and AEW were like, yeah, we can't.
They fumbled it too. We're over here talking about potential.
He ain't got the potential. I'm sorry, dog. He ain't got the potential.
How? What? 4 matches tells you that?
There's a reason why he ain't getting booked in matches, brother.
Why?
You being dead ass?
I'm not kidding.
Bro.
How many matches did the guy have?
Parker Boudreaux.
Yes.
In AEW?
All across the board.
Okay, hold on. Let's shift to AEW. What did he do on AEW? He had the same amount of matches as Malachi Black did in 2023, singles matches.
0. Yes.
Okay, so what I'm trying to explain to you, though, is he was never given a chance in AEW, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in WWE, me and you could agree, yeah, he did some stuff on Level Up, right, or whatever. He did, like, some small stuff. But you don't think at any point somebody backstage was like, yeah, this guy is just not ready?
My thing about that is, right, if do I think that maybe you're right? Yes. I do think that maybe there's a chance you're right about that. But my thing is, as somebody who's made music before, we'll just use music as an example, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I've always said about music is if I'm going to put it out into the world, it's going to be for everybody, right? And people will make their own opinion on it.
Yeah.
And I've only seen Parker Boudreaux or Harland or whatever 4 times that I can think of off the top of my head. 4 times. How? So you're telling me that these people backstage determine what everybody else thinks?
Say that one more time.
So these people backstage are supposed to determine what everybody else thinks, especially if you're okay. And when I say that, don't take it as like, yes, I get it. Those are his bosses, whatever. I get that shit. But why Why put him out there in the first place?
Well, it's okay. I have the answer from a WWE standpoint. As of May 20th, 2022, Parker Boudreaux was released by the WWE. He signed with the WWE in February 2021, but had already made a name for himself by being compared to Brock Lesnar,
which
right?
I remember. Yep.
He debuted as Harland and as a follower of Joe Gacy. So when you say Joe Gacy, just to kind of get back on track, when you say Joe Gacy's character, it's constantly changed. No, it's just constantly evolved. Because if you go back and watch it, you'll see that. Boudreaux was one of the 10 names that was cut on April 30th. So May 20th, he was released on April 30th, and then this article came out. Meltzer came out on May 20th, excuse me. He goes, Dave Meltzer confirmed rumors that Boudreaux had been handpicked to be part of Edge's stable, the Judgment Day, which I remember this greatly because there was rumors about it. This was said to be closely guarded secret with only a very few people knowing about the plan. Boudreaux himself was not even aware of the imminent call-up to the main roster. Meltzer adds that when WWE found something about Boudreaux, the plans changed, and he had developed a reputation for being hurt a lot. Boudreaux had also stopped improving and was not showing the progress WWE had hoped he would be at this point in his career, and the decision was made to release him. Wow. So, why WWE didn't give him a chance? Very clearly, right?
It's not potential, because the potential was there.
Got hurt, injury prone, got hurt, and they found something about him. Probably a legal thing, whatever it may be. I don't speculate on that shit.
Right.
But for Edge to handpick him and WWE, they were going to do that. And then they go off and say, hey, he's not progressing the way we'd hope. Clearly, WWE didn't see something in him like they originally had hoped for. Which, by the way, you and I both know this. We talked about this. It was a very big social media phenomenon when he joined WWE because of the fact
the comparison.
And he was ripped. This dude was like huge. You know what I mean?
When they brought him in as Harland, I was like, because
it was weird.
Yeah,
it was weird, right?
Because when we talked about it, we talked about the Diamond Mine thing.
We did. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
AEW. They didn't put him as Harland. What do? They put him as
Parker Boudreaux,
the guy who's swagged out and got drip, and he's connected with all the rappers and stuff. Yeah. So let me ask you a question.
Bring it on.
When we're talking about the development and all this stuff, right? You asked me, you said, why hasn't he been given a chance? So if WWE and all of these people felt this way before, then he comes to AEW, which, by the way, they tried doing some stuff with him and Sonny Kiss and Slim J or whatever his name is.
Slim J.
I forget his name.
It was Slim J.
But we're talking about that, right? We've seen that. And then he joins Mogul Embassy, right? Why isn't he with Swerve? Is he still in the company? Is he still in AEW? Let's take a look. AEW roster.
Let's look. Tony Khan doesn't release people. I'm not sure if you knew that or not.
Oh, he will.
Yeah.
In AEW, he has a total record of 10-2.
That's a good record. Is he on the roster page? I'm looking.
He is.
He is?
That's a good record. So he is that good. They protected him that much. He has 2 losses and 10 wins, and you're telling me he's that good. Like,
he's got 10 wins, 2 losses. That's a really good record if you break that down. I'm kidding, by the way.
Let me see something. Nick Wayne. What do you think of Nick Wayne?
I like Nick Wayne.
He has a total record of 6-5. Would you argue that Nick Wayne's a better wrestler than Parker Boudreaux?
Yeah.
Matt Taven, longtime wrestling veteran, in AEW has a total record of 13-3.
Now, let me ask you a question. Are these 2023 records?
These are total records, all time.
All time.
So
this man has wrestled 12 times.
For AEW, yes.
That's insane. There he is right there. Yeah, 10-2. 10-2. That is insane to me.
Kota Ibushi has the same amount of losses as Parker Boudreaux.
All right, I get your point. I got it. But I will say I still believe that his potential is there. AEW, sorry, doesn't have the best developmental system in place to develop stars. So somebody like Parker Boudreaux cannot develop in a place like there. Sorry,
My point that I was trying to make, though, is sometimes you have to evolve characters.
Okay.
We got off track, but you have to
Yeah.
evolve your character.
Yeah.
And we have actually seen Joe Gacy's entire character evolve since day one with Harland.
Yeah.
And it evolved into Schism, and now it's evolved again because Schism's gone.
Right.
There's not a problem with that. Now, it would be completely different if he got incredibly repackaged into something like Adam Rose did, right? With Leo Kruger. Like,
Yeah,
it would be different.
Bad. That was bad.
But I'm just saying, brother. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You just gotta remember that, like, WWE plays it the smart way, and I'm not even saying AEW doesn't. Like you said, AEW needs to develop. They're not the place for development. Some people just cannot be developed, bro.
No.
And this is coming from, I don't talk about people's personal skill with this, but based on what's out there, this is the reason why he never panned out. And this is the reason why you got to factor in with NXT. This is why it's actually a good thing that people can try and turn heel and babyface and try different characters and evolve and stuff. Even if it happens frequently, it's still not as bad as Big Show turning heel and face like 20 times in a day.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Like, that would be different. Even in developmental, I'd be like, okay, that's fucking ridiculous. But that's why I disagreed with you.
Somebody said Parker Boudreaux getting paid to stay home. Huge W for him. I agree.
Yeah, it's a huge W for him. I mean, dog, I don't know what the hell he does other than he played football, college football. Everybody loves him.
Yeah, UCF.
Everybody loves him. But basically, my point that I was trying to make is that there's a lot of flaws with the win-loss record in AEW, which is why they don't look at it, because Will Ospreay is 8-3. So Parker Boudreaux has a better record than Will Ospreay. That's a tweet. Oh my God. I got to tweet that. Parker Boudreaux has a better record in AEW than Will Ospreay.
Parker has less losses. What a guy. And more wins.
And because I don't want people to think I'm making this up, brother, I'm going to screenshot it.
Yeah, make sure you do.
But see what I'm saying, Ed? I mean, now we're getting a little bit off track, but that's my point, though, when saying, like, you know, it's just, you could believe in somebody's potential, and at some point you got to stop believing in their potential. Like,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Some people you just have to give up on. That's just how it is. Like, I know from like a wrestling perspective, like Harley Cameron, and again, that we're talking about NXT, but Harley Cameron's in AEW. Harley Cameron is known for QTV.
Yeah. Yep.
And I thought QTV was like kind of cool at first. Like I again, it's just kind of like this stuff I like, whatever. But now she's doing some stuff with like Ruby Soho and Saraya or whatever. And I'm like, wow, they found something even cooler for her.
Yeah.
It's called evolving, bro. You have to evolve. And now the thing is, Harley Cameron has a 2-1 record total in AEW. So you can't look at wins and losses, or you can't look at like X, Y, and Z. What you have to look at is in real time what they're doing and if it's cool or not. That's how I look at it.
That's fair. That's fair. It's definitely a fair assumption there.
But it is funny that Parker Boudreaux has a better record. Parker Boudreaux has a better record than the legendary Sanjay Dutt, who is 0-2.
I feel like it's fair to say that Parker Boudreaux could break out kind of in a place like TNA. Call me crazy, but
I'm going to assume that he hasn't developed the way that people have hoped.
I get what you're saying. But he's got a better record than those guys, so he's obviously done something.
That was kind of funny.
What can I say, man? What can I say? Yo, man, I want to mention, I love your chat. They're fun, man.
Sometimes I gotta stop looking at it because it goes so fast on my screen. And I start freaking out. I'm like, Yeah, napalm. I see what you wrote. I can't put that on the screen, but yeah, I hear you.
Well, yeah, but I'm looking at the Parker Boudreaux as the GOAT.
Vashawn Taylor, I appreciate you, my boy. He says Angle Will has not made his way from New Japan, so that record can't be taken serious. Unfortunately, that's AEW's website telling me his record.
And
That's what they say.
That's serious.
It is serious, unfortunately. Wins and losses, bro.
Yep.
I get what you're saying, though. But yeah.
Very, very serious.
Overall, fun episode of NXT.
Absolutely.
A lot of great stuff. Billy, do you have anything else you want to know or any questions you got or anything you want to talk about? Or
not off the top of my head. There's always a chance. Friday could have more questions. Could always pop back up and ask more questions because I know I'll have more questions for you later down the line. But right now, where we stand, no, I think tonight was an overall good episode of NXT. Would you agree?
No, I've only said it like 5 times today, but
yeah. Whatever.
Interestingly enough, AJPW commentary, which I'm obviously not watching right now because I'm live, but All Japan Pro Wrestling called Charlie Dempsey the ace of NXT.
That's a wild statement.
I love it.
That's a wild statement. Is that they called him the ace?
They called him the ace of NXT.
Has he been on NXT?
Charlie Dempsey?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to call it a night. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Hold on.
Tonight.
Hold on. Have I missed something? I know he's been on NXT, but recently, have I missed something?
Guys, it was such a great episode tonight. This was so fun. Absolutely enjoyable episode of NXT. Some good, some bad, but overall, very good show, fun show. Love doing these live streams. I appreciate you all coming and being here with us tonight. Thank you, everybody who dropped a super chat. And I think we're going to like Billy a lot on this channel. I think it's going to be super fun just to mess with him. If you guys aren't following him on YouTube, youtube.com/BillyTKO. I promise you guys, he doesn't say stupid shit like he just did. I promise you. I've watched his videos. I can vouch. I can vouch. He's not that.
No,
dumb.
I promise I'm not dumb. I promise I'm not.
That was funny. But appreciate you all coming through and dropping super chats, new memberships, all that good stuff. I think I'll be live tomorrow. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We're talking about some Billy. But what, Billy?
I don't know. Anyways, guys, we'll see you. Appreciate the love.
All right. Peace.